Happy Palm Sunday. You know, I was raised in the Methodist Church in New Jersey. I'm grateful for that. I had a lot of great, I mean this in all due respect, good naps on Sundays a lot of times as a child. So maybe that's how they got deeper into my consciousness. I didn't have like the fireballs and things, the guilt, the fear, the shame thrown at me quite as much as some may have. But I remember, as a child, I was always like, what really is Palm Sunday? And they would actually give out, I don't know if anybody here in your childhood, they would actually give palm branches out. And then usually they would find one of the women in the community to sit with us up in the balcony to preoccupy us, like folding the palm leaves into different formations so that we wouldn't shoot spitballs and throw things like that from the top. Sorry, my grandmother's going in her grave. She probably didn't know about that, but there's so much symbolism in Palm Sunday that what I have to do here is actually really focus in on what I feel is the heart, the key at the center of it, because there's so many directions you can go, and there's different sources: Matthew, Mark, or is it Matthew, Luke, and John? There's a few Gnostic sources. Essentially, we've heard it several times that this is when Jesus, comes from Bethany, Beit Ani, the city of dates, and comes in on, let's be real specific here, riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. And of course, there's prophecy in that, because it's said in Zechariah, or technically Zechariah 9:9, that the Messiah would come in lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. And it's a fun thing about prophecy, is if you know the prophecy, all you have to do is do it. It's an interesting little thing there. And it said he'd come in the east gate. I don't know how much people know about the art. You'll probably see this when you go over there. How much people know about archaeology around Jerusalem, as an example. Because of the Jewish prophecy that the Messiah is going to enter through the east gate when Muslims gained control of the city about 500 years ago, thought it might be a good idea to seal the eastern gate with 16 feet of concrete. But incidentally, the one that Jesus actually came in was a tunnel that came under, pretty much straight under that eastern gate. But there's so much gate symbolism in not only in the story, but all over the Jesus teachings. In the Gospel of John, I am the gate. If you're looking at actually with the eastern gate, you have everybody's heard that great phrase, it's easier to get a what? To get a camel through the eye of a needle. That's a really bad mistranslation. Let me tell you about that. First of all, that sounds gruesome, but there's a little bit of theology and something that's like a huge mistake that really only kind of came up within the last century, where there was some sort of people saying that there was an actual gate in the walled city of Jerusalem that was called the Eye of the Needle. Well, it's not true. It was never true. It was actually made up. That word was a mistranslation. Gamel is the word camel in Aramaic. The word actually is gamala. Gamala doesn't mean camel. Gamala means rope. Rope's an interesting thing, because if you think thread through the eye of a needle, you're never going to get a camel through the eye of a needle unless you get really gruesome. But you can actually get a rope through the eye of a needle. How would you do that? You have to unravel it. You kind of work it back in on itself. And there's a sister word with this. In the Aramaic Lord's Prayer, the word actually forgive comes up several times. So let me throw this out there. The idea we have in Christianity of forgiveness is completely bogus. It's based on the Latin. It's based on the Romance languages of a sound that sounds like this: pardon. Pardon. As if I'm a very spiritual being. I'm conscious, and I've been studying A Course in Miracles for 16.35 years, and I absolutely know forgiveness, and I choose love over fear. So I forgive you for doing that, Dana. You know what happened this morning in the office. I think you remember. But I forgive you. I pardon you. That's not forgiveness. That word forgive in Aramaic is shabuk. And what shabuk means very specifically is to remove the root of my suffering. Breathe that in, to remove the root of my suffering. There's a form of shabuk in the Aramaic Lord's Prayer, and it's the word shpoklan. And what shpoklan means is very similar to what we were talking about, that rope. It means that you're almost like you're not just necessarily cutting it and dropping it, but rather you're kind of working it into itself. You're very mindfully sort of bringing it back in, kind of chewing it in your consciousness, being very mindful that as you begin to work it back in on itself, you can start pulling out threads. You can get threads through the eye of a needle. It's not saying that someone that's rich in money can't get through the eye of a needle, but what that's actually saying is you have to come to that place where you have that open space of awareness of your place in what you call the world, that your temple is clean, your temple is clear. And that doesn't mean you didn't do weird stuff in your life or bad things or whatever that may be if you call things good and bad. But there's that awareness that you actually are able to come to, I don't want to say terms, but come to that place of peace, that place of resolution with that. And there's a few words that actually come directly into that. You're actually finding those places in your own heart, in your own awareness, in your own energy body, where you have those masses that you feel you can't quite let go of. And rather than turning your back on them and pardoning some outside source outside of you, you actually sit with it and you look at it and you hold it in your hands and you bring it against your heart. And you're able to find that space, the opening, the gate in that, the way through. Not around. Reverend Ron Roth had said that someone had approached him once that, and Ron sort of pretty much splintered off of the standard Catholic Church, did some really amazing work. And he said someone came up to him once and they're like, why do we have to go, and somebody actually asked me this a few years ago, why do I need to go through the desert? Can't I just go around? And he's like, well, you can go around as many times as you want, but you're still eventually at some point going to go through. You're going to have to go through that. And I want to read a little. This is from my book, Echoes of an Ancient Dream. It's a little bit here about gates. It says, the Yeshua teachings, the Jesus teachings, used the Aramaic word tareya several times to describe this wholly opened and surrendered state of being. Tareya is most often translated as doorway, gate, doorkeeper, or gatekeeper. Tareya would much more accurately be translated as portal, a doorway or entry point between two rooms or dimensions of awareness. The sod, and I'll say sod, it's where the word sod comes from. I'm not talking about grass today, but sod means secret. Okay, now secret doesn't mean secret as in it's locked away and you're not allowed to see it. The secret teachings, when you hear about secret Gnostic schools, mystery schools, the secret teachings, what that actually means is not something that you weren't allowed to see. It actually means that there's something that literally is right in front of your face. Look at it in a different language, right in front of your face, but you don't see its true nature. You only see the codes or the indoctrination or all of the programming that you're injecting upon it. You're not actually seeing it. Anybody here that's a parent, and that point where your children, they get to be like 12, 13, and it's Wayne Dyer. Wayne was like a father to me for many years, and I remember him holding our oldest, Lucinda, and he's like, Dale, you think she's really cute now, but wait till she reaches the age of demonic possession. And he hands her back, and I'm going, and he had a lot of daughters. It happened, and he told us it would be about the time she's 13. Our hazing started a little earlier than that. He mentioned that he was like, when the hip goes, he was like, understand you have zero chance. So you just lay down, you take your beatings, and you move on. Just let it go. But The idea of, read a little bit more here, that the secret is that what I'm saying is with a child, your children go into that space, and for a few years, it's like you wonder where they went. And then maybe you just had a really kicking argument and it really tore you apart in many levels, and you just happen to walk into the room, you see them sitting at the kitchen table outside or something in a moment of vulnerability, and your heart just goes, because you actually see the secret that was there in front of you the whole time, but all of your stuff was dumped on top of that situation. It has nothing to do with forgiving or pardoning somebody else. It has to do with that open space of awareness where you remove the root of your own suffering. You pull it out by the roots. And of course, I would say in this kind of work, you're like, oh, that was the taproot. That's great. So now I'll never have to deal with this again in my life. And as soon as you drop it, the next sprout goes, bloop. It's like, okay, goes far and wide. They say, what is the largest living organism on earth? It's not a whale. It's actually a grove of aspen trees in Colorado that are, I believe it's thousands of acres in mass. Kind of neat how it's all threaded and connected. The sod, the secret, is only revealed through states of deep meditation and contemplation, when one is empty and open, though not necessarily by conscious choice. This open emptiness can often come through an experience of immense challenge, confusion, or profound loss. Giliana, which is the word unveiling, it's the word revelation, actually, in Aramaic. Apocalypsis in Greek. Giliana develops and grows through the fertile open portal when we finally let go. So I'm going to cross-reference something here. I read in reference to Reverend Dana's talk. He said, this is for next one, Easter Sunday, if something is to be resurrected, it means ... something else has died. So what dies? What is it that dies? There's a lot of profound teachings from Yeshua about lights. If I gave you a light, would you hide that light below a bushel? That word bushel in Aramaic is sata. Sata means to cut something away from its source. It's the root of the word satana. Satana, Satan, is not a thing out there, not a big, and Satan, devil, tempter, accuser, resistor, they're all different characters. They're not all the same. Everything gets lumped together. Just like every time there's a woman in the New Testament, it had to be Mary Magdalene or something along those lines. But what I'm saying is, what Satana is that's the changing cast of characters in your life. You have all these situations with different people, and when you're not in that coherence, to bring up heart math actually, when you're not in that state of coherence, that state of uniformity, that state of unison, the state of harmony, that beautiful cosmic experience of openness, then when the system's out of balance with itself, everybody is Satan. You can be in the most beautiful mood in the world and people are cutting you off on the highway. You can be okay, but let's just say the right situation, things happen this morning, and let's just say it was one of those days where you're yelling at traffic and you're using sacred hand symbols to acknowledge people's presence around your car, etc. I know you don't do that. I forgive you. But, Yeshua speaks a lot of a light, and I'm going to come back to this a little bit later, but how many lights are there here? You see that candle, and then there's that reflection on my hand. Is there two lights there? There's just one. So this is just a little gizmo. It's a laser pointer. How many lights am I holding? It's not a trick question. They're all trick questions with me. But so it's just one light. Then we have that illusion somehow of billions of souls on the planet. But really what we are is we are the messengers of that cosmic light. The word angelos in Greek, angel, malaka in Aramaic means messenger. Interestingly, it's also the root of the word angle, because we are that cosmic light hitting that prismatic refraction of the manifest universe, hitting it, and those angles are spreading out. It looks like we've got all these different people out there, all the people we have issues with, all the people that they're the ones we like because they're spiritual, and they're the ones that, and then we have that illusion of orange-headed monsters and big white houses, the problems out there. All these different things that happen outside that, in the words of James Allen, we continually revolt against and affect without, while nourishing its cause in our heart. And then you start having scapegoats and fall guys. Jesus was crucified, right? Something happened before that. How did that happen? How did they find him? How did the authorities find Jesus? Betrayed by Judas Iscariot. Yehuda Iscariota in Aramaic, Judas. It's a funny thing when you look at all the Gnostic sources, all the Aramaic sources, even the Greek sources. You look at all the sources we have about Yeshua. Two people tend to rise above other than the mother, the Holy Mother Mary. There's two people that tend to rise above that seem to be his closest companions. Anybody want to guess who they are? Judas and Mary Magdalene. Now, a few years ago, there was something called the Gospel of Judas. It comes out, written in Greek, and Marvin Meyer, amazing translator, works with National Geographic to translate this text. And Jesus takes Judas out away from everybody else, and he's like, do you see that star? Do you see that one point of light among the stars of the cosmos? That light is yours. I want you to focus on it. The kingdom is going to open up within that light. No matter what happens to you, I want you to remember you are that light. You're a child of that light. You're a channel, vessel, conduit of that light. And then, of course, he turns, and I'll even say this in the New Testament in Aramaic, he doesn't turn and say, go betray me. He actually says, do what you need to do. Interesting on top of that, that word that was used in the Gospel of Judas in Greek is paradidomi. Paradidomi, he paradidomidum. That word doesn't mean betray. What it actually means is this. It means to fulfill, to resolve, to bring something back to wholeness, to bring something to a point of completion, to fulfill a request. There's no betrayal in it. Funny, because the betrayal idea doesn't come from Christianity. It actually comes from the Egyptian philosophies. Because as an example, Horus was baptized by Anup, his cousin, who was then beheaded. Later, he was betrayed by Typhon, who then went and hung himself. What an interesting coincidence that is, how that just lines up. Of course, Horus had 12 disciples, healed the sick, raised the dead, walked on water, turned water into wine. I know it's pure coincidence, but what I'm saying is the Judas thing is very interesting because that word in Aramaic, in the New Testament in Aramaic, sounds like this, mashalam. He mashalamed him. Hear that sound, mashalam, shalom. What does that word mean? Peace. Mashalam is in 1 Timothy when it says, mashalam love casts out fear. Now, we're told it's perfect. But what's interesting about that is that word doesn't mean perfect as in no flaw. Flaw is a judgment. What it means is whole, all-embracing, all-encompassing. Whole, a whole state of being casts out fear. Fear is that state of fragmentation, where somehow that illusory self, your, what Yeshua called ape, which is that word translated as hypocrite, which in Aramaic means persona, or more accurately, mask. That illusory self you have, that somehow the reflection becomes separate from that which it's reflecting. All of a sudden you start living from that. You start looking at what's projecting on the wall and thinking that's your life. You know what he called the projection on the wall? He said you cannot serve God and mammon. The word mammon doesn't mean money. What mammon means is the illusion. It means materiality. It means that somehow believing that all of this is what's real, when science is finally confirming for us that none of this is real. What is real, in the words of St. Francis of Assisi, is that what you are looking for is what is looking. What you are looking for, the peace, the presence, the prosperity, the love, the essence that you seek, is you. It's your natural state of being. And it's when you find the portal in the center of the suffering in your temple, that's when you come into the realization of the awakening of that. And I started looking in the Greek Bibles. What did the Greek Bibles say Judas did? You know what the word was? Paradidome. The same word that was in the Gospel of Judas that they made a big deal about. Doesn't mean betray, means fulfill. Means to resolve, bring to a point of completion. That's what was in the Greek New Testament too. And there's a big deal because it's in a Gnostic one, but here it is. It's been there for 2,000 years. We didn't notice. I didn't notice. But it's so great because you can make all this amazing art. You get into that place of suffering, all the great art of Judas the betrayer. You know, that gets me thinking about something. There's a phrase that I heard from some Catholic friends. And I'm going to rephrase it. I'm going to add one word into it. This is the phrase plus a word. And I want to see how you feel about this. I am not personally responsible for the agony of Christ. It's in the Pentecostal movement as well. It's in the Baptist movement where they act. I am not personally responsible for the agony of Christ. And you see the people dragging the cross on their back during Holy Week and all of that. Kind of missing the point maybe. Missing the point. Let me read a little bit, looking at these ideas of suffering here. This is from the Gospel of Yohanan. Yohanan is John. The first thing they'll tell you in seminary is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not written by Matthew or Mark or Luke or John. Just put that out there. So this is John 12:45 in the Aramaic. John in Aramaic, the Aramaic New Testament doesn't always line up with the Bible. The verses are in a slightly different order because the Aramaic is a bit older. But he who sees me sees him who sent me. He who sees me as the reflection sees that which I am reflecting. Let's put it that way. I have come as the light into this world that all who be and live as me, be and live as me, believe in me, no, be and live as me, do not remain in darkness. He who hears my words, technically they who hear my words, yet does not keep them, I do not judge him, for I have not come to judge the world, but I have come to give life. That word life in Aramaic is chaya. Chaya. The word salvation, you know what that word is in Aramaic? I said this last time I was here. Chaya. The word save, you know what that word is in Aramaic? Chaya. We've got all these salvation, save, all these different words. And what that word chaya means is the conscious energy of life itself. The conscious, whole, undivided, complete energy of life itself. I do not judge him. I have come not to judge the world, but to give life to the world. He who rejects me does not receive my words. There is something that judges him. The word that I have spoken, it will judge him. Now here's a key phrase here, thinking of the resurrection, thinking of what's coming. It will judge him on the last day. Now let me explain what the last day means in Aramaic. In his language, the last day, achraya is the word here. It doesn't necessarily mean the last in an assemblage of days. You've got 14 days and it's the last day, so now you're all going to be judged and you're going to die and the world's going to blow up. It doesn't mean the last day. There's not even a word for day in Aramaic, okay? There's only words that mean moments in time. What achraya actually means is a moment when you're, oh man, I should have brought my Hoberman sphere. Can you look under the table there maybe? Thank you so much, she's amazing. I can't look at her during the service because I either get sad and like want to cry or I get turned on, so I just don't look at her. Sorry. So Dana's laughing the loudest at that, by the way. No. So achraya means not the end of days, the last day. It means a moment when you're pushed to your limit. It's that everybody's had that. You had it in the last couple of years. Does it feel like time's moving faster? Things seem to be a little bit disjointed, maybe. It's a moment when you are pushed to your limit on the last day. For I have not spoken from my soul, but from the one who sent me. Not the reflection that you see, but rather that which it's reflecting. These knowings give eternal life. And I want to look at one last little thing here in that, there was that moment where Yeshua went into the temple at right around this span of time. And what did he do? Got pissed off, right? Threw out the money changers. People say, well, that shows that he's not enlightened because he got pissed. He got angry. And I'm like, number one, maybe he's allowed to get angry. Number two, maybe it wasn't anger. Maybe we mistake very focused, pure clarity as having some sense of hostility attached to it because that's our impression of it. Again, there's a secret that's there. And when you ever meet someone that is so, I don't want to say full of themselves, but they just know what they're here for, they can come off looking a little arrogant. And maybe it's not an arrogance. Maybe that's actually a defeatism or some kind of self-judgment you have going on inside of yourself. Interesting little piece there. But this here is in John 12. A little time longer, the light is among you. And of course, in the Christian church, that means Jesus is there walking around. Walk while you have the light, or else the darkness overcomes you, and he who walks in the darkness does not know where he goes. Believe in the light while you have the light, that you may become what is said in the Christian Bible, the sons of light. There's a lot of sons. There's no gender in that word in Aramaic. The word sounds like this, dafnawi. It's like you're clearing your throat, dafnawi. It's in the Beatitudes where it says, blessed are the peacemakers, which actually means those who birth or plant peace. For they shall become the sons of God, the children of God. That word dafnawi, what it means is actually channel, vessel, or conduit. It's the realization that your point of entry as the light is the light itself. You are that. If you are a reflection of God, then what does that mean? And what is your light then? It's the God light. It's that light. It's, the light of the sun was called Ra in the ancient teachings. The light of the moon was called Nu Ra. The direct light was called Ra. The reflection was called Nu Ra, which is the light of the moon. The moonlight reflects the sunlight. Nu Ra is also the word for human light. So human light reflects the God light. What I'm saying here is that we have this relationship where we somehow feel we're separate from that. I'm going to give you a quote here in closing before our meditation. This is from the Gospel of Thomas. Who wrote the Gospel of Thomas? Trick question. The word Thomas in Aramaic, it's Didymus in Greek. It's Tumas in Aramaic. And what it means is twin. So people think Thomas is the twin of Jesus, but that's not actually what it means. It means self-reflection. This is a reflective view of a lot of the primary, deeper teachings of Jesus, outside of our obsession about a man that walked on the earth, something on a much more pure level. So this is from Yeshua. He says, Jesus said, if they say to you, where did you come from? Say to them, we came from the light. That word from in Coptic also means as. We came as the light. The place where the light came into being on its own accord or in its own essence and established itself and became manifest through their image. Anybody know what manifest means? If you've been taking prosperity classes or The Secret, you don't know what manifest means, is all I can say. And I'm not knocking prosperity classes. Catherine Ponder, she's awesome, etc. But what I am saying is we seem to have this idea today that manifest means to bring into being, to create. That's not what manifest means. It's a Latin term, manus festus, and it means as obvious as my hand. Manus, hand, which is where the word human comes from. It means as obvious as my hand. Colloquially, it means obvious. If you're going around doing affirmations and all this stuff for things you want to manifest, and you say, I am manifesting a car. What do you tell me if you're manifesting a car? You don't have a car. If you tell me, I am attracting abundance into my life, what do you tell me you don't have? Abundance. You don't get what you want. You only get what's obvious to you. So we're using affirmations backward. We're using them to try to convince ourselves that we're that. When in truth, we should be using it as a catalyst to bring up and forgive and or remove the roots inside of us that say we're not that. That's the satana, that's the fragmentation, that's the bushel baskets. That's what needs to die. It's that other self, but you know what? There is no other self. There's only that light which is being reflected. He says, if they say to you, is it you? Are you that light? Say, we are its children. We are the elect of the living one. That word elect doesn't mean chosen. What elect actually means is undivided. It means undivided, unadulterated. If they ask you, what is the sign of the living one within you? Say to them, it is movement and rest. What's the sign of the living one within you? Or take your hand and in Islam they say Allah is nearer than your jugular. That's close. That's pretty close. That pursuit for something outside, the pursuit of that suffering self that needs to die until you're able to put your arms around it and let it be, it will terrorize you. And I will say, I am personally responsible for the suffering of Christ, that phrase that's there in Christianity. I am not. The word excruciating means to suffer at the cross point. What's the cross point? It's that ancient Sumerian symbol of the eternal nature, that eternal, undivided, unborn light, and the human self, which is that horizontal cross point that's trying to become more of what it already is. And we suffer at the crux or the cross point of that. Hanging from the cross, divided by the two thieves, our own presence of awareness, the past and the future. And we die on that cross. So what I'm saying is, does that sound good? Big breath. Now we're going to go into, we're going to allow this to sort of integrate itself, okay? Can we maybe drop the lighting would be awesome. And I'll give you one little Easter piece here too, since just one little quick sentence. Everybody knows where the eggs come from at Easter. The idea of the egg's been around long before the Jesus teachings, the reoccurrence of life, that eternal. You see lots of pictures of Mary Magdalene, but this is the fact of where the Easter egg hunt comes from. This is from a book, Astrotheology and Shamanism, Christianity's Pagan Roots. It says, the tradition of Easter egg hunting found its way into modern times because our ancestors provided, and this is backed up by lots of other sources, provided their children with baskets and sent them into the woods to look underneath the trees and shrubbery for the sacred sacrament, the egg-shaped mushrooms needed in many early Christian rituals. Shh. The symbolism of the egg is important to mythology. The sun represents a great yolk inside the cosmic egg. So let's just be aware of that. Where did I put it? What's the sign of the living one within you? It is movement and resolve. So the word that we're going to tone here, we've heard it a lot today, but we're going to tone it in Aramaic. It's a word that has double meanings to it. We're going to tone it for several minutes, and then we're going to be in 3 minutes of extended silence, okay? So rather than me leading you, guiding, we're going to be using vibration and frequency, allowing that to open the soul, and then allow it to come back to that point of rest. This word, the dual meaning is that in some ways it means bring me salvation, which is that word, conscious life, save me. It has that inquisition, but it's also an acknowledgement that you have that. What it technically means, and let me give it to you very specifically, if I can find where did I put it? So what it technically means is a calibration or a return to wholeness. And we heard it a lot today. It sounds like this in English, Hosanna. We're going to do it in Aramaic, okay, in Jesus' language. The first letter sounds like this. You hear it? It's a letter Aleph. It's actually silent. You're going to make this form with your mouth, and then what comes after that is this. Ushana. Ushana. Okay? I didn't say shana na. I said boom. I said oosh. Woodstock reference. So you're starting with the mouth open, ushana. So let's try that without doing the ana part, just the whoosh. Let's get a beautiful breath in into the lungs, through the nose. Whoosh. Let's do that one more time. Now we're going to add ana. So get a big breath in the nose. Let's do that again. Big breath. Very reverent. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring an open air, an open emptiness, a portal of praise in. Okay, let's bring the joy, the ecstasy into the sound, not even changing the pitch, just allow your energy to open, okay? Let's bring us into a place of even more empowerment. Big breath. Oh, Shana. Keep repeating. Oh, Shana. Oh, Shana. Oh, Shana. I'm going to add a little pitch into it. Just listen. Oh, Shana. Okay? Beautiful breath. Oh, Shana. Oh, Shana. One more time. Everything you got. Oh, Shana. silence. I'm going to repeat this a few times myself. You just allow yourself to let that vibration move through you, and that's going to be followed by 3 minutes of silence, okay? So just allow this to go through. I'm going to offer this to you 3 more times. Just allow it to move through you. Let's take 3 deep cleansing breaths in through the nose. Bring that into the temple. Out through the mouth. Again. Bring your awareness fully back into the room. In closing, just one last little piece of insight here. The word for grace that is shed upon you in Aramaic sounds like this. Tebuta. Tebuta. I whisper that to myself a lot. Tebuta. Grace. The bigger piece of insight is that it's also the word in Aramaic for gratitude. Grace is not bestowed upon the lowly. It's awakened through a grateful heart. It's the understanding that it's not about the death, it's about life. It's the realization that in Yeshua's final words on the cross in Aramaic, Ili, Ili, or Eloi, Eloi, lamana sabachthani, my God, my one, lamana, which is the word mana, that stuff that falls from heaven, which means what is it, or oh, I now see, that sabachthani, which is a form of the word forgiveness. Not that you've forsaken me, but that I suffer because I have not forgiven. I haven't let go. I have not allowed the release of the suffering. And then what comes soon after that? Into your hands I commend my... So keep this in mind over the next few days. It's not about the suffering. It's not about the torture. It's not even really about the death. It's about the letting go of that which is, again, not real, so that that which is the true light of life itself can now shine unblemished, not through a glass darkly, but wide open and expansive as you. What you're looking for is what is looking. With that, I say, Our gathering today is 1 to 3 p.m. It's going to be really profound. We've got cool mandala lighting and stuff that's going to be projecting on the walls, activated by the sound. It's really cool stuff. And then tomorrow, we have 1 hour personal sessions with Paradigm, but we're adding some things in a breathwork process I've been doing for about 25 years. So it's going to, if you had a session last time, it's going to be basically, let's just say, greatly amplified. It's going to get deeper and it's going to go wider. Those are tomorrow only because we got to leave Tuesday morning. With that, I say, love one and one another as I have loved you. Namaste. Thank you.